First up, Jeff.
Herm, there's a lot on a quarterback's shoulders in a normal year anyway. How much additional responsibility and pressure is there on someone like Jaden in the middle of COVID and with what your team has gone through?
Well, he's part of it. When you think about the quarterback, he's in the huddle with the players, right, wrong, or indifferent. When things aren't functioning well on the field, he's got to play that leadership role. All those things come into play, and I think Jaden's well aware of that. We've lost 2 tough games thus far this season. Bringing in a new offense, obviously. Conversation I had with Jaden earlier is that, we don't have Brandon Ayuk here. Brandon Ayuk is in the NFL. He's a first-round pick. The veteran receiver is Frank. We lost him early in the SC game. He was able to play this week. So you got a host of young players with a new offense. And that's just part of it. And that's just how you process all that and how you lead them through this is very important. So he understands that.
Jackson.
Hey, Coach, just looking ahead to this week, U of A has lost 11 straight games. Do you just expect, an extra hungry team given that they've lost so many games and that this is a rivalry game?
Well, when you turn the tape on, very competitive. They lost to SC at home by 4. They lose to Colorado. And that was one of those games this week that they played Colorado. They were 1 score down in the third quarter and threw a costly interception in the end zone and had the ball right back down there again. And on 4th down, Colorado made a play and didn't allow them to score. So they played very well at home against 2 teams that obviously are undefeated. So we anticipate that, along with it being a rivalry game. They have not won a game. We have not won a game this season. And so all bets are off. And I think we know that. We have a bunch of young guys, first year going to this. We're trying to give them little pieces of what this game really means to our fan base, where it stands in college football, one of the longest rivalries in college football. So all those things matter. And we, like anybody else, when you haven't won a game, you want to win a game. You don't want to keep going through the drudgery of almost winning. They want to win one, and we want to win one.
Travis. Travis.
Hi, sorry, Herm. What did you think of the offensive execution of your game plan against UCLA, especially in light of the several weeks you had off and then falling in a hole early in the game?
Well, I thought we were slow early. I thought our whole team was kind of slow trying to figure out the pace of the game. First quarter was an even quarter, 0-0. Their second quarter all season, UCLA has been their big scoring quarter. And they got a lead on us. Quarterback made some plays with his feet. The runner made a couple nice runs for them. Offensively, we struggled a little bit just connecting and trying to hit some passes. That wasn't really smooth. And I thought the second half, we kind of got a flow going, and then it became a game of really handling their pressure. They brought a lot of pressure. They brought 5-6 man pressure for most of the day. And it was a matter of our receivers, getting open versus man-to-man coverage. I mean, that's going to kind of be our deal right now. I think people are going to bring pressure. They're going to see if we can beat their cover guys. That's kind of what the game became. It became one of those type of games.
Ho.
Herm, when you look at the 2 games you played this year and the defense giving up a score or the USC game, a couple scores so late in the game, I know you win and lose as a team, but is there something to be said about lack of offensive support, if you will, in the second half that maybe just kind of puts the defense at a breaking point?
Well, I don't know that so much. I just think we had opportunities in both those games that you mentioned. We had an opportunity to make some stops against SC on 4th down. That did not happen. And then the SC game, we also had the opportunity offensively to go down at the end. We still possessed the ball at the end. We had a chance to get in the field goal range and maybe kick a field goal and win, right? So when you look at that game, you look at this game, the defense had the lead at the end. Although there was 4 minutes, we had to lead by a point. There was 4 minutes left on the clock. and we couldn't find a way to get off the field. We needed to get off the field. And with that being said, the offense had the ball at the end to go, and we had 2 timeouts in our pocket to go down the field and maybe score and get it tied up. That didn't happen for us. And so, that's what we are right now as a football team, not be able to finish things on either side of the football.
Michelle.
Hey, Coach, you touched on it a little bit earlier, but I was wondering your take on your players' comfort level with this offense right now.
After 2 games, I think it's still work in progress, and that's what it's been. And I think for Zach, too, getting familiar with the players, how he wants to call the game. He's only had 2 live games, and so we're still working at it. There's no doubt about that. And when you think about it, we had 1 game, and then we had a delay for quite some time before we played again. So I think it's familiarity. We have new running backs. We have a host of new receivers. We're in a new offense. We're using the tight end packages a little bit more than we've done here in the past, with 2 tight ends at times. So all that stuff has to get worked out. And the only way you work it out is you have to play games. And we've been fortunate to play 2, so hopefully we can finish off with some more games before the season ends.
Michael.
Yeah, Coach, when you looked at the tape at UCLA too, also, what was your thought of the secondary? I mean, obviously, like you said, I know it's 2 games, but from USC, I mean, making plays, being physical, but then to this game, what was your thought of the secondary play? From UCLA, yeah.
Or UCLA defense?
No, for yours.
I thought for the most part, secondary was physical as far as the run game, because they were going to run the ball, and we did a pretty good job. We missed a tackle or 2. Pass coverage wise, I thought at times we played fairly well, when the quarterback left the pocket. And so I think as a unit, obviously, we got some players that had to play a little bit more than we anticipated due to our situation in the back end, but that's okay. They got some snaps that I think will help them down the road in developing as a good football player.
Doug.
Hi, Herm. You were asked about this after Saturday's game, but the ineligible man downfield penalties, when you saw those again on film, how tricky is that rule in the first place, and what were the lessons or learned from that from those plays?
Well, a couple of them were tight, but some of them they were obvious, and I think sometimes if we don't get the call correctly, a couple of them I think the call, they didn't hear the whole call and they thought it was another play and it was not, and so that hurt us. There's no doubt that hurt us. A couple plays, big plays, one for a touchdown that you don't get back. Andre's first touchdown is a shame. He runs a nice route. It's a nice play call. Everything's designed right. And got a man downfield, cancels that out. So hopefully we can learn from that and get better.
Jacob.
Herm, a couple months ago, you had talked about how Tyler Johnson was in a much better mental place than he was even a couple weeks before when you had said that. Relative to what he's been able to do and what he did on Saturday, where do you think he is in terms of his overall motivation towards the game? Because you had said that it was never really a physical thing for him. It was always how much he wanted it.
Yeah, and I think he's improved tremendously. I mean, he is one of the bright spots on defense right now for us as far as rushing the quarterback, getting to the quarterback. He made a couple plays in UCLA games, one-on-one tackles with that quarterback. Very difficult to do. You guys watch the game. He's a handful of space. And Tyler did a great job of rushing the pocket and keeping the quarterback contained, and made some plays. So he's been a bright spot defensively for the plays he's made. He's always been a guy to make a play or two, but he had a really pretty consistent game. I felt one of his most consistent games, in my opinion, since he's been here.
Jack.
What do you think you've learned about this rivalry over the last 2 years? And you were talking about all the young players. How do you get that across to them?
I think every day we talk about it a little bit. And there's certain ways you show them certain things. what has transpired over the years. And all these young guys know they've had a high school rivalry, but now this is a college one. This is a big one. This one has been going on for a long, long time, right? And I just think the fan bases really get excited about this game. It's a shame that fans can't come in the stands, because I can remember the first time playing in it down there. It was quite an atmosphere. And then last year they came here, atmosphere had changed a whole lot. And I think both fan bases really are motivated by this game. You have bragging rights for a whole year when you win a game like this. So it's kind of important.
Hunter.
You mentioned obviously 2 games in a row now that you say that you guys feel like you didn't necessarily finish.
Yes.
How do you improve finishing games? Is it something that is it late game scenarios in practice? Is it just motivation? Is it, I'm curious as to what your philosophy is with trying to get your players to be able to finish games.
Understanding the situation and not letting your guard down. I think sometimes, games go when they ebb and flow. They flow. Games go up and they go down. And I think there comes a point in the game, especially in the fourth quarter when you're playing a tight game, that every snap becomes more magnified when a game is tight like that, because of how is this thing going to go now? What team is going to gain momentum? And we have lost momentum. We had some momentum where we had the game like right in our hands, and we lost the momentum, whether it was on offense or defense. And I think when we get into those situations, we have to understand that and close the game out. We have to learn how to close the game out.
If I could, sorry.
Hey, Coach, obviously you made a kicking change there the end of the first half. Do you have any updates on what the kicking situation will be going forward?
Well, we have 2 kickers. Similar to my first year here, we had 2 kickers. And we'll just play it by ear. What practice will have a lot to do with it. Both of them have done a good job for the most part. Young man went in there, Luckhurst went in there first kick and kicked one. In practice, we had them both working at it again today, and we'll determine when the game is being played. We feel comfortable at that point if we have to kick a field goal.
Few more questions. Michael.
Coach, I know you talked about Tyler too, but how complimentary? I mean, obviously the improvement not even improvement, the growth of Lole. I mean, on that defensive line. I mean, how important is that in your eyes? I mean, to Tyler's growth as well.
No doubt, unsung hero inside, and he's getting a lot of double teams at times, as far as in passing situations. But he's always in position to make the comfortable make the quarterback uncomfortable. Smart player, real physical inside, and has a way of working his way to the quarterback. So, he's been very consistent for us. There's no doubt about that. And I think when you get a couple guys inside, that's a concern for offenses. All of a sudden the end gets a one-on-one and has the ability to beat the tackle. That helps you as a defense.
Jacob.
Herm, last week you spoke about how one of your foremost concerns for the game against UCLA was your team's conditioning and
Yes.
how we come back from a 3-week hiatus. How did they perform relative to your expectations from a conditioning standpoint, and kind of how do you build from what you saw over the weekend?
We were a little fatigued in the first quarter on both sides of the ball. You could see it in the players. And then it was just a matter of getting into feeling the game speed again. We had missed that. And that the anxiety with game speed has the ability to get you fatigued. And I thought that happened. But for the most part, I thought the second half we got our wind. And we started to realize we're in a game and this is what it's going to look like. So, I think we can move on from that now. But that's always scary when you play your first game, and then you get a layoff as long as we had. What is the conditioning? You're playing a team that's been playing games, and we hadn't had the opportunity to do that. First half, it affected us a little bit.
Zach.
Coach, I like to think I'm an optimist. Is there anything positive coming out of this game that you think we should address in talking about today's press conference?
Well, the rivalry and the history of it all. I mean, you guys, this has been going on a long, long time. And I just think that when you have rivalry games, that's what makes college football so special. They used to have rivalry games in the NFL, and they started adding teams and switching divisions and everything else, and they still have some. But this college thing is interesting because it's about the fan bases. It's about the people that have attended these universities, right? As students, and they might not even be athletes, but they understand the rivalry games. And so historically, that's what makes this thing so unique. And it really doesn't matter how many games you won or lost. When you play a rivalry game, you understand the emotion of it all. And the sad part, I think, for everyone that has to play in rivalry games, especially in the Pac-12 where fans can't come in and watch it, because that's half of it. That's half of the excitement of it all, the pageantry of the rivalry games and the fan bases getting after each other. It's fun to watch.
Craig?
Hey, Coach, follow up on that. How awkward or different is this, having just played 2 games a month apart and U of A's played 4? I mean, it just has a different feel almost to me coming into the rivalry week. Does it to you at all?
Well, it does in the sense that I think the sad part, and I keep getting back to it, is the passion and the energy that the fans bring into the stadium. You can imagine what it looks like when it's a rivalry game. And that's hard. I think it's hard on everybody because the players anticipate it. You anticipate if you're going on the road, this is what it's going to be like. And if they're coming here, this is what. So, I mean, all those things, now fans are hollering at the televisions or at the monitors. We can't hear them. And they have that other noise, that ambience noise that just keeps running. After a while, you don't hear it. After about 5 minutes of the game, you don't even hear it anymore. It's just kind of, okay. So all that, I think, has a lot to do with it. We miss that.
Last question, Jeff. On mute, Jeff.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay, so you were successful throwing the double pass in the early part of the second half. And that's always been a big part of Boise's offense. Do you see as you go along more of those kind of, whether you want to call them trick plays or whatever, do you see more of those in the future?
Well, it's just, it's part of the staple. I mean, you talk about Boise State. I mean, they do some things a little bit different. But I think college football is about that, about, some misdirection plays. And you got to be able to call them at the right time. I mean, it's not like your game plan, but there's a spot in the game where you feel like maybe this will work. And it all has to do with how you set up things when it comes to trick plays, right? I mean, you got to set them up. And at that point in time, it was a good time for it, right? It was good. It was a good play to run. We got the right front, we got the right coverage, and it worked out. And so it's kind of interesting when those things happen. When they don't work, you go, why did we run that, right? Why did we run that play right now, right? That's what everybody says. Even I stand there sometimes going, really? But hey, it worked. It was fun to watch.
Thank you, Coach.
Thank you, guys.
Thanks, Coach.
All right. Thank you much.